Today, a Redditor confesses that they're about to get sued for a car accident that happened 2 years ago. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I lie to my husband almost every time I leave the house, and I can't tell him why. I tell him I'm going to visit my deceased family member. Several have died over the past couple of years, and we have a family tomb area, if you want to call it that. With the most recent death being an immediate family member, I tell them 2 or 3 times a week I'm going to visit them, but I'm not. I don't know if it's a mental block or what. I want to go, but I can't. Instead, I stop at a bar that's near the area, grab a burger, fries, and lots of alcohol. If you're wondering how I don't show up drunk, it's because I always had an abnormally high tolerance for alcohol. My entire family does. Guess it's a side effect of being from a family where alcoholism runs on both sides. Or maybe it's the reason alcoholism runs on both sides. I don't know. Thing is, I want to go. I want to visit them, but the past month I get about 5 minutes away and start to panic and just turn into the bar. This is also the only time I drink. I don't tell him because we have kids and when he gets off work or it's the weekend, I know he'd like to have that time to himself. But I want to see my family, but then I get scared. And I thought about having him and the kids come with me to make sure I go, but I don't like showing emotions publicly, so it won't feel right. I don't know why I posted this. Maybe out of guilt. I feel like a liar. But I also feel like I crash my car into a brick wall every time I get 5 minutes away from the graveyard. I try to fight the urge to visit because I know deep down I'll never make it, but I want to make it. I'd be kind of curious to know the kind of common consensus on whether or not people think the husband does know. I mean, I'm not really a drinker myself. Is it possible with people who have a high tolerance that they could have, as OP describes, lots and lots of alcohol, turn around, get back home, and act like they visited their family or whatnot, lied about the whole thing, and don't come off drunk or even smell drunk? Nobody important commented, "You think he can't tell?" You need to be more honest with yourself, because if you're drinking much at all, he knows because he can smell it a mile away. Only an alcoholic or a child thinks other people can't smell the alcohol on them when they've been drinking. He knows and has chosen to accept you're lying to him because he thinks you're cheating or doesn't want to know and can't accept reality in front of him. I was him at one point in my life, but now I'm divorced from her and free from all of her BS and lies, so don't keep doing it. And change yourself to be better for your family and marriage before you destroy it, or worse, unalive someone driving drunk. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy Redditor confessions, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, girl at school hates me because she thinks I want her boyfriend. I actually want her. I don't care much for labels. We're all humans and crushes happen naturally. At least that's my mindset. This girl that one of my classmates is dating is absolutely beautiful, except she saw me walking with her boyfriend. I'm manager of the baseball team and he's on the baseball team, so it was strictly professional and started a rumor I wanted her boyfriend. I shrugged it off and didn't care for it until I saw her a couple of weeks later and called her pretty, and she mistook it as me trying to get on her good side because of her boyfriend. In actuality, I'd been having dreams about her. I'm attracted to her in a way I never thought I'd be with a girl because usually my mind wanders off to men. I don't plan on confessing because I don't date people, nor do I fully see myself with a woman. She's hot though. I'm definitely not going anywhere near telling OP what they should or shouldn't do, what their heart should or shouldn't want. All I am saying is it feels like there's still room for OP to kind of figure out what they truly want, desire, or what they're actually okay with. I mean, I guess it just kind of strikes me odd that OP could go, I'm having dreams about this person, they're so hot, I could never imagine myself with anybody like that. It's not really any of my business, but why? Kitty No Show commented, I wouldn't rule out dating a girl if you find that you like them. In my experience, the connection and all that can be much more intense and all around better. Just saying. You should probably make it clear that you don't want the guy though, but either way, like someone else said, you never know what the future holds. OP responded commenting, I've made it clear she doesn't believe me. It's funny how attracted I am to her and so little to him. Kitty No Show replied saying, might be worth exploring with other girls that aren't her. Girls are soft and pretty and funny and all around yum. Getting out there wouldn't hurt and it might help you get over this particular girl. Genuinely best of luck with whatever you do though. Our next story is, I have an imaginary girlfriend. I would obviously never admit this to anyone I know in real life, but I have an imaginary girlfriend. I'm a normal 30-year-old guy, but when it comes to socializing and relationships, I'm just terrible. I have no friends or anything. I just can't do the socializing side of life. I've never had a girlfriend or even really ever had a girl attracted to me, and at this point, I won't. I'm ugly and can't talk to women, so it's just not gonna happen. So I just made my own up. I'll have conversations with her and pretend that we're going out doing something fun for the day. Sometimes I have imaginary friends, and we'll have a double date or a board game night or something. Just how I imagine a normal social life would be. It doesn't get in the way of work or anything. I'm not calling in sick to pretend to be with her. I'll just go to work as normal, have a normal day, and when I get home, I'll have dinner and then go straight to bed, shut my eyes, and pretend we're spending the day at the aquarium or playing mini golf or something. To be honest, it's my favorite thing to do with my free time. Like I say though, it doesn't get in the way of work or going grocery shopping or anything. I know it's not real, and if people asked me if I was in a relationship, I'd say no, but it just feels good to pretend. You know, I'm not saying what OP's doing is necessarily becoming more and more common, but it feels like every other day I see some kind of statistic that pops up that says like 45% of guys under 23 have never approached a girl, or really similar statistics to stuff like that. Is it because everything is so like dating app oriented? Is it like social media making everybody feel like they're just not good enough to be wanted or something? Johnny Christ 97 commented, "Escapism is a very normal thing. The majority of us wish we could live better lives, and sometimes it's nice to imagine a reality where that's the truth, but it can also be harmful to an extent if you let it. You might want to consider seeking counseling if that's at all an option for you." OP responded commenting, "I've seen multiple therapists about my loneliness, but it never really helped. I've tried going out and being more social, but when you don't have any friends, every interaction with anyone is strange and weird, and people just look down on you. I'd rather spend my free time as I do right now, which is what makes me happiest." Our next story is, my 22-year-old female girlfriend, 23-year-old female, decided on a break. So as the title says, we talked a lot yesterday, and I told her that I don't want to break up, and if that's what she wanted, she has to say it. And she didn't break up, just decided for a break. We slept in the same bed yesterday, and today I moved my stuff to another room, and I'm just broken. I already miss her so much. Her laugh, her smile, her eyes, everything about her I just miss. Also, yesterday, she said that she realized that she mentally broke up with me some time ago, and I just need someone to talk to because I'm slowly going insane. She was the only person I could go to with my problems, but now I can't, and that hurts like crap. I know I freaked up a lot, but still, I want to fix it, and I hope that after this break, she will want the same. You know, from experience, I can honestly say that most times, if it gets to a point in a relationship where you take a break, that is more or less a breakup. Like, there's so little chance of recovery, or like healthy recovery anyways, from coming back from something like a break, especially when it comes to something like open relationship break. Jesus is Jericho commented, "She's gone, buddy. Take it from a dude 10 years older than you who was just in the same scenario a year ago. I called her bluff on the break and she had a new apartment within 5 days. It ain't no lie about women usually having made up their minds well before they make their move. Whether they've communicated that in a healthy way or not is null." Our next story is, friend saved photos of my wife. My 31-year-old male, wife Kate, 28-year-old female, has a close friend who owns a women's clothing boutique in our town. Kate helps her out by modeling some of the clothes for the store's website, mostly dresses and other outfits, but also some swimwear. Kate's happy to help out and has fun with it. For Valentine's Day, Kate modeled some new lingerie and undies for the site, which was something she hadn't done. It got some attention among our families and friend group, but in a supportive way. It wasn't that different from the swimwear shots she did, although those were more cute, and these were more sexy, I guess you could say, although totally tasteful. On Saturday, one of my friend's wives texted me that she had discovered that her husband, my friend, had saved 3 of these new photos to his phone. She didn't say how she found out, but was bothered and said she just thought I should know. I'm not sure what to think about this. It feels like a violation, but these pictures are from a public website. I'm also not sure whether to tell Kate about this. So actually, I feel like the line here is pretty clear for OP, because as much as OP's like trying to reason with, well, it's on a public website, there's still a difference between your friends supporting your wife and ogling your wife with saved photos to their phone, whether or not those photos were public or not. Like, the focus should never be grappling with whether or not he had legitimate access to those photos, but what he's doing with said photos. He certainly ain't saving those photos to shop for his wife. AstroBlastro318 commented, I would say tell her because it's in the friend group and bound to slip out. Don't let her be blindsided and or have no time to process that info if it does slip somewhere. How to feel about it? It sucks. It's one thing to know your wife is attractive and a whole different thing to have it proven in that way, but not her fault. Shouldn't stop her from doing what she enjoys. It sounds like a big problem that other couples' marriage though, not so much yours. I personally wouldn't make it bigger than it has to be. Our next story is, I just found out my autistic uncle is homeless and I'm so worried. I, 17, haven't spoken to my mom's side of the family in nearly 10 years. My mom's mom has some sort of undiagnosed personality disorder and refused to ever see me or my sister again because she found a permanent garden ornament broken. Not even relevant, but we didn't even break it, she just decided that we did. I wasn't too upset at the time because I didn't like her very much anyway, but because of how she is, it meant that none of us could speak to my mom's siblings either, so we just don't talk to that side of the family. I was in work tonight and a man walked in. Despite it being nearly 10 years and him having a full beard, he's now nearly 30, he had the exact same eyes and I knew it was my uncle. He's got autism, not super severe, but the kind where he'd either need to live at a home or a social worker to visit him daily or something. On his way back out, he came over. We haven't talked since I was 8 and we were talking about how long it had been. He said, yeah, because of all that crap that happened with my mom, and rolled his eyes, and I knew he mustn't have been on good terms with her either. He then told me that he was living alone, which I was happy to hear because the last time I'd seen him, that wasn't something that would have been in the cards for him. We talked for a little longer and he said he was really happy to see me and left. I called my mom to tell her I'd seen him and she asked how he was doing, and I told her he was living alone and she asked where, and I said, he said it's just across the road from here, my work. She went really quiet for a few seconds and said, that's for homeless people. I'm so worried. It's tiny. They're literally shipping containers. They're barely big enough to fit a bed. A lot of the people that live there are drug addicts. Not shaming addicts, I'm just worried he might get involved in things he shouldn't. If he had a social worker, they wouldn't let him live there. If he's living there, he's not speaking to my granny, which means he's not speaking to any of the family. He's an autistic man, alone, homeless, with no support or family, and the only network around him are homeless too and can't help him. My mom's going there tomorrow to ask if the homeless center will let her speak to him, and if not, she's gonna try and leave her number so he can get in touch. He's such a lovely man, and I'm so worried that he has absolutely none of the support that he desperately needs. I think it's pretty awful that it seems like basically everybody on that side of the family straight up abandoned him and left him to try to fend for himself when he's not really a person that's really fully capable of doing so. I definitely don't see why they wouldn't be able to make that contact, and if he really does need help, why it shouldn't be relatively easy to get them in contact with resources that can help. MadXBelly23 commented, your grandma sucks, obviously, but the rest of the family that chose not to speak to you and your brother because of her sucks even more. OP responded commenting, I don't think they do. I've never been mad at them for it, and neither has my mom. I know how my granny is. If they chose to side with us, or that's how my granny would have seen it if they kept talking to us, she would have kicked them out. She kicked my mom out when she was 17 and pregnant, and she ended up homeless because she had nowhere else to go. My mom is the only one of her siblings who isn't autistic, and I will never be mad at people who need support to live, choosing the option that means they have that support. Our next story is, my girlfriend, female 23, fought with me, male 23, over a stupid TikTok meme. For context, she's a fan of an artist that goes by the name of Biba Doobie. She's been to her shows before, and she's tried to get me to like her music, which I appreciate and would try my best to enjoy and be supportive of her. I mostly listen to hip-hop and she doesn't enjoy it as much, so it goes both ways. For the past few months, there's been this meme that's been making rounds on TikTok: artists who can sing versus artists who can't sing. It's a satirical joke saying that Biba Doobie, an artist who can actually sing, can't sing, and a rapper, NBA Youngboy, paired with an absolutely horrible clip of him singing, can sing. I personally found it hilarious. A few days ago, Biba Doobie posted a TikTok ranting about this meme and being mad about people calling her an artist who can't sing, even though the meme technically implied that she could sing, and it really upset my girlfriend, especially because Biba Doobie blamed men, saying that men are jealous of her success and always trying to put women down. I told my girlfriend that it's not that deep and it's just a stupid TikTok meme. It ticked her off. She started to blame me, saying that I was part of the problem and that misogyny is deeply rooted into men's minds and that she's disappointed with me for dismissing it as a joke. We haven't spoken properly in 2 days, and I don't know if I should be laughing about the sheer stupidity of the situation at hand or console her. So here's the conflicting part is OP sees this meme and obviously sees it as this dumb joke. Like they see it as something that's not about gender or putting somebody down, it's just like this dumb meme where they pick a rapper and say, "This guy can sing so well." Problem is, that kind of meme out there on TikTok, especially where the comments can be brutal, are going to invite a lot of misogyny. So obviously there's going to be a lot of hurt and anger directed in that direction, but when it's brought back to OP, who only saw it as like a dumb joke, I just don't think they're able to fully appreciate the awfulness of the behavior of everybody out there on the internet. Like, to put it simply, if you have any kind of following or notoriety online, you are going to experience some horrendous comments, some things that are written solely trying to tear your whole identity down. Like when I look at my comments here, I tend to look at them behind my fingers in front of my face, cringing and waiting for that next comment that's perfectly crafted to give me the next insecurity of the next decade. I can't fault anybody for being upset about any kind of dumb narrative that goes around. Mad Gear Missile Kid commented, "I think you're missing the point. I think the artist can see that it's a joke, but that joke is also causing a flood of weird butt dudes to make weird butt comments on our socials, which is not okay. Dismissing that as a woman who just can't take that as a joke is super misogynistic and honestly makes you look really stupid. And if you're able to dismiss that, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of other things you dismiss with your actual girlfriend. You can say that she's having a feminist phase or whatever, but it kind of seems like you just don't really take her seriously or value her thoughts or feelings and would rather go to Reddit to complain about it instead of just talking to someone you know better than we do. So there's that." This next story is, "My best friend tried to set me up with a guy who turned out to be her boyfriend. So my best friend kept raving about this amazing guy and insisted I should meet him. She hyped him up, saying that we would be perfect together. I finally agreed to go on a date, and everything seemed fine until I noticed something off. Maybe he seemed a little too nervous, or he accidentally mentioned something about our mutual friend that sounded too familiar. Then I stumbled upon the shocking truth. This guy was actually my best friend's boyfriend. Turns out she was testing his loyalty, wanting to see if he would cheat or get tempted, but instead of just, talking to him like a normal person, she decided to drag me into the mess. Now I have to decide, expose my best friend's twisted plan, tell the guy what's really going on, or just walk away from the drama and let them both deal with the disaster. Update, since so many are asking, we matched in Bumble, me and the guy. That Bumble account was created by my best friend for me, and the first thing she did is push us on a date. I feel like the responses are going to kind of vary here. I'd love to know what you guys think. Personally, if it were me, I think I would just tell this guy straight up the truth because 1, I don't want to have to deal with that on either side. I'm not part of this game. And 2, if I were that guy, I feel like I would want to know if my girlfriend is going around making these weird, dumb, date loyalty plans. And also, lastly, what does this guy even think this is? The girlfriend set it up for them and then push them on a date? Does he know who OP is? Does he know that this is set up to be a date? How is his loyalty even being tested here? This next story is, my dad pulled a pew-pew on my husband. Last night, my parents arrived from out of town to celebrate my 7-year-old's birthday. My dad drove myself, my mom, and my child to dinner. We decided to try another restaurant after cruising through our first option's busy parking lot. I gave my dad directions, and he began to argue with me, determined he knew his way around better than the person living there. He then began driving erratically, and I asked him to bring us home. He wouldn't, and continued to the next restaurant. I said to bring us home again, but he again refused. I texted my husband asking for a ride home, and finally my dad agreed to take us back. He told me he was going to punch me in the face. My child began crying and screaming while my dad continued berating me through my pleads to stop doing this in front of her. Upon arriving home, my husband was in the kitchen, words were exchanged. My dad told my husband he was going to kick his butt. In our own home, a scuffle broke out, and my husband ended up landing a punch to the side of my dad's face, which knocked my dad to the ground. My dad then stood up. At this point, I'm walking into the house with my mom and child steps behind. I screamed upon seeing the blood from my dad's face. He then pulled the pew-pew and aimed it at my husband's chest. Needless to say, my parents packed up to make the multiple-hour return trip home. I'm done with any sort of relationship with my parents, but I grieve the loss of having parents and my child having that grandparent relationship. Any advice is helpful, trying to wrap my head around this still. I mean, if I were talking to OP, I wouldn't really want to alarm them, but that amount of lack of emotional regulation is so concerning, and especially doubly so when he so willingly pulled out that weapon, that I feel like it's worthwhile to start questioning your security, whether you should involve the police, a restraining order, something like that. Actually get some sleep commented, report to the police, and never speak to them again. You need to protect your family from them. I always say family is chosen while relatives only share DNA. Your dad chose to not only put you and your child in danger by driving erratically, but he threatened your husband's life. He should never have access to any of you again. Our next story is, my mom is finally acknowledging that my sister is a horrible person. I'm late 20s and my sister is early 30s. Since we were kids, my sister has abused me relentlessly. When I was 15, she found God and came to me crying about how she treated me, and our relationship was okay for a bit. Ever since I've become an adult and not listened to every word she said and made my own decisions, like getting tattoos, piercings, etc., and it's clear I no longer look up to her as a starry-eyed little sister, she has become worse in her treatment of me. It took me a long time and a lot of therapy to realize that her animosity comes from her needing someone to step on, and I was the obvious target for so long. Now that I'm not anymore, she's lashing out. She has no friends, and her former colleagues at anywhere she has worked do not like her because of these traits. My mom, for a long time, did not get involved in our relationship and did not pick sides. I didn't expect her to. I also don't tell my mom half of what my sisters put me through because in the past I've been dismissed, including when I told her that as a child, my sister held a sharp object up to me and threatened me whilst my mom was at work. Anyway, as you can see, my sister is quite domineering. For a long time, she's had my mom wrapped around her finger too. That was until a few years ago, the first time my sister went through religious psychosis. That made both me and my mom realize that her word isn't bond and she isn't all-knowing. She was sectioned and released a few months later. She refuses to believe anything was wrong and runs the narrative that I put her in the hospital. Literally impossible, and therefore didn't receive any further treatment post-discharge. She's now going through religious psychosis again, but way worse. She has capacity and knows what she's doing, so it isn't bad enough to be sectioned. I officially cut her off 2 years ago following a particularly bad argument where she said some vile stuff to me, such as wishing that I would get ovarian cancer and expire. She refuses to apologize. In recent months, things have deteriorated and she has been particularly combative. Today, my mom finally told me that she doesn't blame me for not speaking to her and that after what she's done, she wouldn't speak to her either if she was me. In the midst of so much stress, this felt like a small victory. Both my mom and my dad have tried to force me to speak to my sister in the past when I've tried to cut her off. The same old "we're family" bullcrap. I know my dad would never come around, but I'm glad my mom has. I just needed to vent. I wish I never had a sister. I don't know if there just hasn't been enough intervention medically, psychologically, maybe especially parentally. Either way, at least OP has that door open now where they understand what OP's at least kind of been going through, and that they don't have to worry about being inundated with the "we're family, continue to talk to her, come on" bull. Nix1978 commented, "Is your sister possibly schizophrenic? Has she been tested for a diagnosis? I'm glad you're protecting yourself. She'll find someone else to blame, or keep blaming you, but will look foolish since you don't see her." Our next story is, I, 22-year-old male, am about to get sued for a car accident that happened 2 years ago. To start, I want to tell you my current situation. Me and my girlfriend, 21-year-old female, had a baby boy. Unfortunately, he was born early at 32 weeks. So he's currently in the NICU as I'm typing this, and he is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. What this means is my girlfriend can't work, and being that I'll now live with 2 kids, one 4 years old and one newborn, I have to work. I make less than $15,000 a year. All of my money that I get from every paycheck goes straight to rent. Unfortunately, I don't even have enough left over for groceries. Back to April of 2023, I had just finished my shift from work 10 o'clock at night and I want to go home and sleep. Obviously, this is the part where I get into a car accident. The worst part is it wasn't my fault, but because there were no cameras and where we collided in our cars, I was deemed at fault by the police. So on top of having to completely replace my whole front bumper, I had to sit there knowing that I was blamed for something that wasn't my fault. Fast forward to today, almost exactly 2 years later, I get a call from my insurance company saying that they didn't take the $40,000 settlement that was offered to them and might try and go for the whole coverage amount of $100,000. However, if they don't, then they will sue me personally. The lady I hit apparently now needs surgery and wants that money to pay for it, even though she admitted to having a pre-existing back problem. I still have to pay her. Given that I make no money, just had a baby, and have to provide for 2 kids and 1 adult, I feel like I'm so freaked, and it's making me lose faith in humanity. This happened 2 years ago and I'd already forgotten about it. I just don't understand why anybody would do something like this. I understand there's messed up people out there, but this is just a lot. I don't even have my son out of NICU yet. To be honest, I like thinking humanity is good and God is real, but even if I've sinned, I don't understand what I could have done to deserve something like this. I try my hardest to be a good person, to be a father to my girlfriend's 4-year-old son, even though he isn't mine, to prove to the world that my parents treated me better than their parents before them, and stuff like this, with my girlfriend being in the hospital for weeks, a baby in the NICU, and now this car accident. I'm sorry, but I'm losing my faith in pretty much everything. To be honest, I don't even really know what to say in a situation like this besides I feel like I would be feeling the same exact way. I guess what resources can you lean into in a situation like this to maybe be able to help out? Andrew B80 commented, "First, it's going to take months if not years to go through the courts if they're suing for that much, so time is on your side. Second, your insurance company is obligated to defend you, so they'll pay for or assign you an attorney. Third, even if they do win and get a judgment, then all you do is file for bankruptcy. At the amount of money you make, you won't even need to pay court fees. Yes, you'll have a bankruptcy on your credit record for 7 years, but you won't owe them anything. Make sure your attorney knows that is what you intend to do. They can use it as leverage to get the other party to accept their offer. If they don't accept the money offered by the insurance company and you file for bankruptcy after they sue you, but before they get the judgment, then they may end up with nothing, since they can no longer collect from you, and that means the insurance company doesn't have to pay either in a lot of situations, so they will end up with nothing." Our next story is, "My child has become a child again. I don't think I can do this again. My 50-year-old male, child, 24 non-binary, has become a child again. I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure I can do this anymore. As a child, they were incredibly dependent on me and their mom, as my ex-wife, 53-year-old female, coddled, isolated, and sheltered them from the world. This was because my child is autistic, and my ex was convinced that this was the best way to raise them. Obviously, we couldn't protect them from everything, as they were bullied and taken advantage of regularly, even by children younger than them. It all came to a head in middle school when my ex and I divorced. It was messy and traumatic for our child, as they thought of ending things and depressed. They barely attended school, and yet somehow they ended up getting into high school. I homeschooled them during middle school as best as I could before sending them to a small private school, so they weren't home all the time and would hopefully make some friends. Obviously, this didn't work out, and they went through high school and most of college completely friendless. It bothered them, but they were also unable to connect with people their age. My child mainly lives with me, as my ex had a relapse in anger management and I figured it would be best. Before this, my child has no interest in having a job because they were utterly terrified of being left alone at work and wanted something more remote and flexible. I managed to help them land a part-time job while they finished up school and learned how to do the chores my ex insisted they never learned. Last month, a family member on my ex's side of the family had a medical emergency, and my child went to stay with her mom to be closer to the hospital they were at, and planned to come home once they were discharged. They got home last week after being at their mom's house for almost a month. They don't open up anymore. I found out they dropped all their classes this semester and even had basically quit going to work. All they do is lay in bed watching Bluey. I ask if they want to do anything, and they say they're exhausted. But how can they be exhausted if all they do is rest? I can't go back to having a lazy, unmotivated person in my house. I can't go back to financially supporting them. I can't go back to them not opening up when clearly something happened. I know this family member didn't die, so what happened? I'm so lost, tired, and confused. I've tried being nice, and when I finally snapped, they screamed, kicked me, and cussed me out just like the tantrums they threw as a child. I can't do this anymore. Years of therapy and supporting them, and it was for nothing. 1 month ruined every ounce of progress made to make my child a functioning adult, and now I'm back to having to budget and pray I can make ends meet every month. If they don't get their act together, they're going back with mom. She can deal with them this time, not me. It's just kind of an overall crushing story to hear. Like, I kind of get it, OP is absolutely exhausted, but I kind of hate this rhetoric they're sharing of, I can't stand this much longer, I'm just going to kick them back to mom and let mom deal with them. I get it, there doesn't really feel like there's a true path forward, but is also abandoning your kid outright the right one? Kitty No Show commented, both you and your kid need support. It's not all about one or the other. If you can't handle the regression, it's understandable, but then it's time to look at group home options, since mom is also not a good fit. Best wishes. Our next story is, I gambled with my girlfriend's money and lied about it. My girlfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years. She's responsible with money and I am too. Last week, I was dead broke but had this parlay that I was absolutely convinced would hit. I made up some bull about needing $100 for a work expense that would be reimbursed. She didn't hesitate to transfer the money. I feel like such a piece of crap typing this out. Anyway, I placed the bet and against all odds, it actually hit. $5,000 payout on a $100 bet. I was ecstatic, but immediately realized I had a problem. How do I explain suddenly having all this cash? Instead of coming clean, I bought her a $1,200 designer handbag she'd been eyeing for months. Told her I'd been saving up for it as a surprise. She was over the moon, crying and everything. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there feeling like the biggest fraud. I've put the rest into savings, but I can't shake this guilty feeling. Every time she uses the bag and thanks me for being so thoughtful, I feel worse. The relationship is built on trust, and I've completely violated that. Part of me wants to come clean, but I know that she'd be devastated to learn I not only gambled, but lied about it. What started as this harmless lie has turned into this whole facade. I genuinely love her and hate that I've betrayed her trust like this. I know the right thing is to tell her, but I'm terrified of losing her. I've stopped gambling since this happened, but the damage is already done. Well, I think if OP wants to make up in regards to lying to their girlfriend, they should probably start by stopping lying to themselves. I just don't understand how somebody can write, I made up some bullcrap about needing $100 for a work expense. Anyway, I turned around and put that $100 I lied about on a bet. But actually go and preface that whole thing by saying, I'm responsible with money. I would be willing to put my money on the majority of people who hear this story not really believing OP is all that responsible. OKTrain2644 commented, if you're responsible with money, you wouldn't have been dead broke and gambling, my guy. Take this as a life lesson and delete prize pics. Our next story is, my stepdaughter won't stop crying. The norovirus ran through my house like Marshawn Lynch, and I'm quarantined in our bedroom. This week, our girls are with their bio mom but come home to us after school every day. My husband told them that they can't see me because I'm sick and we want to keep them healthy. My youngest started bawling because she couldn't hug me and wanted to see my face. I won't lie, I started tearing up and really feel loved. I certainly am glad that there's no actual viruses that can storm through somebody like Marshawn Lynch. At least, in due time, they'll be able to reunite. Tiny Green Turtles commented, this is so sad, but like Marshawn Lynch, took me out. I hope everyone's feeling better soon. Video call? I spent a lot of time in the hospital when my kids were little, and it wasn't perfect, but it helped. We used Facebook Messenger or Snapchat so we could play with filters. It was a good distraction. Okines Nessic 2003 commented, that's so sweet but also so tough. It sucks being stuck in quarantine and not being able to comfort your little one, but the fact that she wants to hug you that bad shows how much she loves you. Heartfelt moments like that hit different. Our next story is, when I saw how long the maid of honor's wedding speech was, I insisted on giving my best man speech first. My elder brother, 43-year-old male, got married in 2024 and I, 42-year-old male, was his best man. I've always believed these speeches should be short and concise, to the point, funny, endearing, but move it along. My written speech was humorous and fast-paced. Every time I timed it, I was around 4 to 5 minutes. On the morning of the wedding, I'm talking with the maid of honor and she pulls out this folded up book report, 7 or 8 pages, typed, double-sided. She's already a long-winded and slow talker, so this is going to be brutal for everyone. The plan was for the maid of honor to go first and best man second. A few minutes before lining up for introductions, I make up a quick lie that my stomach has been hurting all day but feels good right now. Would it be okay if I get my speech out of the way first in case I need to use the bathroom quickly? Both bride and brother agree they don't want any timing hiccups, and this plan makes sense. Maid of honor is none the wiser. I mentioned to the DJ to introduce me first, and that's that. My speech was a hit. I got a couple of big laughs and happy tears from the bride. It ended with hugs and applause. I was proudly done. What happened next was something I can't even describe. Maid of honor was far less comfortable speaking in front of 250 people than I guess she assumed, and a glass or two of wine didn't help at all. She was shaking, rambling a bit, and with long pauses, even a little tipsy and loud at times. Around the 10-minute mark, she lost her place among all her pages as we didn't have a podium. It was just us standing by their table with a mic. This was a brutal 30 seconds of silence watching her fish pages as all the guests exchanged glances. I would guess her total speech was somewhere around 25 minutes. I knew her speech was a grind and mine was short, and I couldn't follow it. She had to follow mine. To anyone who's giving one of these speeches, please consider a hard cap around 7 or 8 minutes, but 5 is probably best. If you're dying up there and people are walking to the bar, this goes bad quickly. You know, I don't know if I would ever be invited to such a thing, but the idea and the concept of being a best man or a maid of honor and having to deliver this speech, the pressure to try to recall all these memories and recollections that are funny about each other, and then the added pressure of performing that in front of all these people trying to memorize the speech. I don't envy anybody that has to go through with it. That said, I'm not gonna lie, I do feel like I would be able to write something pretty decent. The pressure would definitely be there, but I feel like I could do it. Mr. Hex commented, I was at a wedding of a good friend and spoke to his best man the night before in the bar. I told him the best advice I ever received was, stand up, speak up, then shut up. Or, in other words, keep it short and sweet. He nodded sagely and thanked me. I kid you not, the first thing he said when he got up to make his speech was that some people had advised him to keep it short, but this was not his style. Cue, and I kid you not, 55 plus minutes of inane and pointless rambling as if he was chatting to his mate in the pub and not in front of 200 plus guests. Because his speech was happening just after the starters and before the main course, everyone had to just sit there and suffer. The only people who had the power to get the meal served or to move things on were sitting at the bride and groom's table with rictus smiles plastered onto their faces. Eventually, some people just got up and went to the bar, toilet, whatever, and the band, not knowing anyone and forced to sit on stage for the duration, eventually went to the hotel bar, an open bar, got ticked up, and then a couple of them passed out so they couldn't play. His speech finally ground to a halt, and then the now cold food was served. Nobody felt like giving any more speeches, and someone had to find an iPad and plug it into the sound system to get some music going. Wedding speeches are to praise and thank the bride and groom and possibly to amuse and entertain the other guests. It's not your time to audition for a public speaking career, nor is it about you or your vanity. Just make it short, sweet, and heartfelt, and you will do fine. Two Bionic Knees commented, that best man was secretly in love with the bride, well, or the groom, and wanted to freak the wedding up. Ruined food, ruined vibe, that's intentional. No one wants to listen to anyone for 55 minutes. Students don't want to listen to a professor for that long. No one wants to hear the life story of your friendship. No one wants to hear about you directly. They want an anecdote or two, a joke or two, a sweet story about when you realized he fell in love with her, like the, I gotta go see about a girl and skipping a party and they know he was serious. 99% of the time, a speech goes too long, the person is trying to make the day about themselves. Our next story is, I was forced to marry my cousin, trapped in a loveless marriage, and have lost all hope. I have lost all hope. I was a romantic person who dreamed of marrying a man I could truly love, but all my dreams ended when my mother and aunt pressured me into marrying my cousin. At the age of 16, I was told I would be marrying him, and by 17, the marriage took place. He was 27 at the time. I never liked him at all, but after getting married, I had no choice but to try and develop feelings for him, though it never happened. He was simply not the type of man I could love. To make matters worse, he's my first cousin, someone who used to call me a child and a sister. Then, out of nowhere, I was informed that the two of us would be getting married. When my aunt asked for my consent, I replied that I was a child and that he was like a brother to me. However, she didn't take my response seriously because she assumed I wouldn't say no. I felt completely powerless. Now, at 20, I find myself trapped in a loveless marriage. What makes the situation even worse are the comments I've heard from others. Some men have told me that no one would marry a divorcee, so it's better to stay in the marriage than to divorce. These remarks have deeply affected me. My aunt has also repeatedly told me that if I divorce her son, I'll suffer and regret it for the rest of my life. All of these factors have made me lose hope. I can't bring myself to divorce because my aunt tells me that I'll suffer. I also fear that it'll make it difficult for me to marry again. At the same time, I cannot stay with my husband because I have absolutely no attraction or love for him. I feel stuck, and this pain is overwhelming. I don't know where in the world OP resides, but I would be very, very shocked if it was in the US or even kind of a country similar to the US. Like, to be honest, in 2025, I feel like the amount of countries you can start rattling off that fit the bill of arranged marriage and if you divorce and you're on your own, you may regret it forever, is going to be a very specific, probably very small list. Like, honestly, I feel like I know so little about life in wherever OP probably lives that it's even hard to begin to feel appropriate to even speculate on what you could or couldn't do. Benny commented, "They say that because it's a scare tactic. Do you know anyone personally who's divorced and unhappy? I doubt you'll find someone because they're all happy." Our next story is, "I think I'm going to leave my wife. I just needed to write my thoughts down and have someone know before I explode. My wife and I have been trying to have kids, only to recently find out she really does not want anyway. We're both turning close to 30 and have been together for 7+ years. A close family member gave us an opportunity to adopt her newborn, and my wife said no. I've been a husband for over 7 years now. I just want to be a father. I love my wife and I want to be with her for all eternity, but I've always wanted to have a child to raise and call my own. Now I'm at the point where I can either take the baby and raise her myself, or stay in a marriage and push through it with the woman I love. I don't know what to do. I want to be with my wife, but I want to be a father. Having one without the other just seems like a lose-lose to me." Add-on edit, "Thank you all for your comments. Let me get more detailed. I was very emotional and was going through it when I wrote this yesterday. When we first started dating, we've always wanted kids. We've been trying for over 5 years to conceive. We went to a fertility doctor who told us it would be hard due to my wife's conditions, but not impossible. They gave us ways we would be able to do it that we could afford. My wife doesn't want to do them. Why? Because she just told me last night, after not having kids for so long, she just simply does not want kids anymore. At first, she pushed it off saying, 'Not this time,' but she's been saying that for 4 years. 'Not this time.' In July, we were able to get pregnant. It turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. We were devastated when we found out. I feel like that was the last nail in the coffin of not wanting kids for her. The family member, she's had 7 kids already, and in my culture, giving kids to other family members for adoption the legal way is normal. My wife just does not want kids, is what she said. I don't want to leave her, that's not my intention, but I do want kids. I've always wanted to be a father. I hope they cleared up questions you all might have had. I just feel like this is such an important crossroads for OP to figure out. And honestly, this topic right here, it kind of is awkward or weird to bring it up on a first date, but it's kind of that thing that's so important to know and be on the same page with a prospective partner from the get-go. Obviously, in OP's situation, they thought they were, and there's been a change up, but OP definitely has to figure out, are they happy in this relationship without kids? Or do they know they want kids and their life is unfulfilled without it? Because if she truly doesn't and OP still does, I don't know if you get a much more valid reason for a divorce than that. Ghostface29 commented, "If you want kids and she doesn't, then given your ages, which are close to mine, you should split up, bro. Maybe find a woman who wants kids and shares your vision, or adopt your close family member's newborn. But either way, go with your gut." Riotous Viscera commented, "Is it that she doesn't want kids, or just doesn't want to adopt the family member's newborn though? That's a huge distinction it doesn't seem like OP's making, and a really important one. Pregnancy is 9 months long. That's a lot of time to prepare, which is the most important part of welcoming a baby into your life. It sounds like this was kind of a sudden development with a relative offering them to adopt their baby, and depending on the situation, there could be any number of reasons OP's wife said no that have little to do with whether she wants kids, period, or not. This next story is, my girlfriend is always nitpicking. Hi, I just wanted to vent because I'm slowly getting real tired of this BS. My girlfriend always, and I mean always, has to nitpick and compare everything we do. Like earlier today, as she was washing dishes and I was drying them, she was like, "You're not as good with cleaning." I asked what she meant by that because I'm always cleaning, and this was the first time in a while that she's washed the dishes, and she was like, "You never get the small things like the baseboards and inside the microwave like I do." Mind you, I do those things, maybe not the baseboards in the kitchen, but I get them in the room because of our dog. I got upset and was like, "What's the point in saying this?" She said, "It's okay to admit that as a woman, you aren't the best at cleaning." That really ticked me off because I clean the little things. Heck, I get the stuff that she doesn't. I'm the only one that cleans the bathroom. I'm talking everything off the sink and out of the shower to get all the walls and cleaning the toilet constantly. It's just so frustrating because she's always on this high horse like she's better than me sometimes. She gets upset when I bring up things that she doesn't do, but when she does it, I get defensive or emotional. I'm just getting tired of it and I don't know what to do. My question would be, 1, how's the general communication in this relationship? And 2, how often does OP acknowledge and praise their partner? And I guess in return, how often does OP feel like they get praised or appreciated? I mean, maybe this is a situation where they're not communicating well, they're not like sharing appreciation or praising each other enough. It's kind of regressing into this like witchy roommate kind of vibe. "You don't clean the baseboards." "Oh yeah, well I picked the pubic hair off the toilet again." Lil Stevie commented, "If you never tell her, she will never know it upsets you. Just talk to her." I used to nitpick my boyfriend. I couldn't help it. My mom always did it to me growing up. Every time I cleaned, she followed me and told me everything I was doing wrong. So now I'm a champion cleaner. My boyfriend is not. I nitpicked his cleaning when we got together. He told me it bothers him. It bothers me too, so I went to therapy. Now I understand why I did what I did, and I can bite my tongue and just clean up after him. My mom made me think it was a big deal growing up. It's not. It's just dirt. She needs to be told how much it bothers you and maybe go to therapy if it's a big problem in your life. Tell her how it makes you feel, not just that what she's doing is wrong. Our next story is, I've been using fake names and phone numbers for emergency contacts for the last 5 years because I have no one. I grew up severely neglected with a lot of abuse at home. As soon as I could legally get a job, I did and saved up enough to move out on my own. At times, I had 3 jobs at once, but I made it work. I went to community college, got a degree in IT and a super entry-level IT job, and over 7 brutal years, I paid my way through college. I sent out 107 resumes back in 2021, got 2 callbacks for interviews, killed them both, and got 2 job offers. Opportunities don't come around in my life often, but when they do, I never wasted them. I'm just really underpaid. It could be a lot of things. I'm a short guy, I'm ugly as freak, I'm a minority, whatever. I know I'm not crap. I still made it work. I could take the crappy pay because they let me telework, and I could work anywhere with internet. I found out last week my place is following Fed's guidelines and returning to work, so I'll need to move closer to come in every day. I literally cannot afford a place within an hour of work that's not a giant downgrade. At this point, with my depression being nearly as old as I am, the constant feeling of the entire world rejecting me, emotionally, physically, and financially, I'm just tired. I'm tired of fighting to live in a world that hates me. I'm so tired of fighting so hard to live with some dignity. I look around and all I see is pain and terrible people in charge of all of us inflicting it upon us. I'm tired of all the rules set in place for ages that make me automatically lose. I don't have a family. My last relationship ended with me getting cheated on. I get it. I'm supposed to feel humiliation in this life. I'm just so tired and want it to let up. Maybe give me a day away from it. I fantasize about finding a friend, emptying out my savings and travel to Switzerland. Me and my best friend blow all my money on fancy hotels, seeing cool crap, skiing, always wanted to try, and go down the road where they filmed that James Bond movie. You know, in a way, I kind of feel what OP's going through, especially the, daydreams of even being able to blow money and go somewhere. I would say myself, I have a very select amount of people in my life. Like, genuinely, the amount of people I genuinely talk to, you could probably, count on one hand. I gotta say, I adopted a dog recently who is a huge cuddle bug. Any of the very rare times where there would be down times, it's kind of hard to get there again when you got this fluffy dog that just wants to sit on your lap. Sucker for Cats commented, "Have you looked into Meetup? I joined a Meetup years ago and met a close local friend through there that's now not only my emergency contact, but power of attorney because all my good friends and family are 2,000 miles away. Took me 10 years to make good friends where I live, but I didn't give up. Met this friend one day when I scheduled a meetup for hiking in a group I was in, found out he was from the same city as I was, and we've been best buddies ever since. I've since made other friends through Meetup and a couple that I trust from work. Don't give up. Sometimes it can take a long time, but if you make even just small changes and join a dining group, board games group, book club, political group, or something in your area, you'll meet someone. Sometimes I absolutely hated forcing myself to go out, but after a couple of times, it became fun thinking of unique or fun things to do. Our next story is, I hate my wife's sister and I don't know why. I, 29-year-old male, and my wife, 30-year-old female, have been together for 14 years. Dating for 10 and married for 4, and during that entire time, I have irrationally hated her sister. And I seriously don't know why. For context, me and my wife first started dating in year 11, and we're sort of polar opposites. She's very extroverted, whereas I'm more introverted. She would often bring me to gatherings to try and bring me out of my shell, which never really worked, which includes family gatherings like dinners and such. This is where I met her sister, Anna, 28-year-old female. She's very quiet and doesn't talk too much at these gatherings, but when she does, she comes off to me as very cynical and sarcastic. I hate this. But the problem is, I'm the same way. I'm also quiet, cynical, etc. I don't know why I have such a dislike for her, and to be honest, it's driving me crazy since I've kept this a secret for so many years. Not even my wife knows just how much I dislike her sister. She'd probably slap me if I told her. Can anyone let me know why I'm like this? I'm fine with everyone else in her family, her parents, and her older brother. I just irrationally dislike Anna. To be honest, I don't really know where to go with it. Like, maybe you could say it's a gut feeling and, you just have this feeling about this person. Or you could look at it in a little bit maybe more rational way and say, have they actually done something that warrants feeling the way OP does about them? Or is OP judging this book not even by its cover but by the dust jacket that's covering the cover? To be honest, there's not a lot to go off of here. It feels like OP's kind of describing them as going to this family gathering. The sister opens their mouth and says, I hate the world, and OP's brain immediately registers, this is literally the worst person I've ever met in my life, and I don't know why. Casker M68 commented, I once worked with a girl remarkably similar to me. Week 1, she seemed great. We held similar opinions, had nice conversations. Week 2, getting to be a bit of a bore. Week 3, actively grated on me and I on her. The timelines might have been a bit exaggerated. Maybe it's the similarity that irks. Assuming she hasn't said or done anything awful, OP responded saying, she's a really lovely person, just quiet. She's never really done anything awful to me personally either. Like, the worst thing I can think of was early on in the dating phase. My wife brought me around for a family barbecue and she made a snide comment about me not being able to properly cook on a grill, which, to be fair, she was correct. But I think it was just her trying to make light of the situation. Our next story is, my wife doesn't know I don't eat to try to save money. I don't really know how to start this, but I need to tell someone. But I know if my wife finds out, she'll beat herself up over it. Well, I'd say it started after she got laid off at work, and an old injury of mine caused a lot of hospital time. While she found a new one, she doesn't make as much as she used to. And I pushed for a raise at my work, but it isn't enough to get back to where we were. So the only thing I could change the price of is with groceries. We would spend $300 for 2 to 3 weeks of groceries, and now we spend $150 to $200. The only way I could achieve this was cut back on my eating. So I maybe eat a handful of crackers throughout the day and then cook dinner for my wife and myself dinner. My wife doesn't appear to notice this, which I guess it's easier to not notice since we both have been working on losing weight. but I fear I may be relapsing into my eating disorder that I got from my time in the military. I was always 2 pounds over my max weight, and their idea was to help heavily restrict what I was allowed to eat. This helped take the weight of money being tight for a while, but with the extreme cold and snow, my efforts have been pushed back by the dang electric bill. I'm not really looking for advice. I know there are food pantries in my area, but it makes me feel like I could be taking food away from someone who needs it more. I just needed to get this out there because I don't know anyone that wouldn't tell my wife. It's certainly not my job to try to convince somebody who feels otherwise, but personally I feel like if you're struggling the way OP is describing to get by, there really is genuinely no shame in leaning on a food pantry for help. Onk4921 commented, "This will be hard for you to hear, but you are one of the people who needs it more. I'm not trying to be cruel, I'm speaking from personal experience. There is no shame in accepting help when you need it. You're not trying to scam the system or get something you don't deserve. You're trying to survive until you get back on your feet. You will get back on your feet quicker if you accept help when you need it. I know you don't want to make your wife feel bad. You know her, we don't. How do you think she would react? Would she get upset and make it about herself? Or would she want the opportunity to help? Even though she can't work, support takes many forms. Perhaps she could offer emotional support or help you find additional ways to save money. I hope things get better soon." This next story is, "I found out I have a half-brother. My parents divorced when I was a kid, and I've never met my alcoholic father since. He never even sent support money to my mother. Now that I'm older, my mother just one day told me my father kept it a secret that he married once before we ended up marrying my mother, and that I might have a half-brother, though she wasn't sure, but she had a name. My whole life, I thought I was an only child, but after scouring through social media, I found the name my mother told me, there on Facebook, an older brother. Someone even commented on one of his posts that he looked exactly like my father, which confirmed it for me. I have so many questions for him. Was my father at least a good father to him? Or was he the same crap and abandoned us both? But I can't bring myself to send a message." You know, I've seen, especially in situations where the dad was awful to both sides, where there's just like so much baggage around having a father like that having a half-sibling show up and try to reach out and connect is like such a weird like redirection back into the father's direction that one side may not want to even go near, especially if both kids resemble the father. Like, you know the person reaching out isn't the person your father is, but it still feels like talking to mini-me. Conference Sutton 1519 commented, "My wife just met her sisters she herself didn't know about. They're bonding just fine and taking things slowly, just getting to know each other. I think you should reach out and see if maybe a relationship is even possible. Hi, my name is your dad so-and-so? If so, he's also my sperm donor as well, and I was wondering if you'd like to get to know me. My mom just told me about a possibility of having a sibling, so I just wanted to reach out to see if maybe I had a big brother. When you're ready or become curious, let me know and we can have a coffee." Our next story is, "My fart was thought to be a gas leak." Yep, it's a true incident that I'm not proud of at all. I hope people laugh because it's still a running joke in my family to this day. This was back in 2023. I was a para in school for my first job out of college. At the time, I was working through a heartbreak that left me depressed and hating myself for a number of reasons. In my head, I was like, I can't afford a dog, so let's change my body drastically. I chose bodybuilding instead because that's normal for a 24-year-old who finally got into a relationship and then was dumped by a girl. It was way more expensive than a dog, in case you were wondering. Anyway, I was about 2.5 to 2 months away from my first bodybuilding show. I am depleted and carbs are being cut to a point that dang my bowels are not happy with the lack of carbs. One day, I'm with a student for his break. We're out in the hall when all of a sudden, I can't tell if I have to fart or if I'm about to crap myself in front of a first grader. I unfortunately let out the most silent but deadly fart of my life. It was so bad that the para in one of the other classes asked if I smelled what she was smelling. I said yeah, and then she asked if it smells like gas. Panic set in and I said yes. I did not blame it on the student at all. This woman ended up bringing the janitor to see if it was an actual freaking gas leak. It took everything I had to keep it together because I worked with my best friends at the time. They don't know this story. I was so embarrassed that I could not say it was me or blame it on the student. It was so bad that I would have set off a carbon monoxide alarm if it was in the hallway. My mom and sister still make fun of me for it to this day. I hope this makes people laugh and feels so good to get out. So having read this story, I just gotta say, you know what else probably felt so good to get out for OP? A little Nicolina2302 commented, "You say at the end that it felt good to get the story out? I'm thinking that's exactly how your body was feeling getting that fart out." OP responded saying, "Honestly was still struggling after. It was right before my lunch break. Febreze was a godsend." But with that explosive ending, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Redditor confession, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.